Here is my first impression of the Octatrack, which I think embodies what it's like to be a fresh Octatrack owner. But now I have found my own little groove and I'm starting to settle into my own workflow with the Octatrack. So I have tracks 1, 2, 3, 4, and 8 solo. These are like the rhythmic one-shot parts within this groove. Each of these voices are parts within a template that I'll be keeping consistent for pretty much all of my future Octatrack tracks. Of course, there's going to be adjustments along the way, but taking a closer look at effects on each of these tracks, so effects 1 and effects 2. In the case of each voice here, effects 1 is assigned to filter, so this is outsourced to here. Bringing the filter down is actually a really cool way to make it seem like you have different drums that are playing. So for example, on the snare and the hi-hat, it's like a different drum kit. Right away, we're off to a really cool start, and I'll be deep diving into this particular setup. So how I have all of this outsourced, all of these pots are set up. We'll also be talking about limits in comparison to, yes, the Digitact. I am a heavy Digitact user, at least I was. I've had the Digitact for much longer than the Octatrack, so I'm still like kind of in that headspace, slowly adjusting. At this point, I still do think that the Octatrack is far superior in many ways, but there are some aspects of the Digitact which I wish were integrated into the Octatrack. As in, I wish that the Digitact developers went back in time and included those additions into the Octatrack.
It would be even cooler.
There's nothing in the dawless world that's perfect, so it's really just about integrating into your own workflow, your own setup, and making it work for you. If you'd like to jump to anything specific within this video, check out the timestamps or chapters that are linked in the description. And today's sponsor is DistroKid. If you're looking to officially release music to all major streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Tidal, everything else, go with DistroKid. This here is a special discount link for you guys to use in case you do want to sign up. They're geared towards independent artists and producers like myself, possibly you, and they offer a ton of free promotional tools, which I use pretty much on every single one of my releases and also across all of my social media. We'll be getting specifically into Hyperfollow, which is one of their features. It's a free link in bio link. More on that later in the video. You can, of course, do everything that I'm about to show you on the Octatrack alone, but there will be lots of menu diving involved, especially during a live performance where you have control over all your voices at once. It's not really realistic to be jumping back and forth between effects during a performance. A MIDI controller like the PC-12 just completely eliminates this. All your controls are bop, 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 bop right here for each voice, so it's just a lot easier to work with. Any and all Octatrack Midi information is in the back of the Octatrack manual. There's a lot of other information here, so like hex, deck, rec. My advice, unless you're using like an old school MIDI controller, is to just ignore this information. All of that information really threw me off when I first dove into the Octatrack, as demonstrated in my first impression video. The only thing you need to pay attention to is CC information, and that's what you're going to assign to each of these pots on your MIDI controller, or faders, or buttons. It's actually a very simple MIDI setup, so nothing to freak out about like I did. So generally this is how I lay out my samples within my template. So these are all one shots, kick, snare, hi-hat. This is a 4-bar perk loop. These are all 4-bar loops as well. 4-bar bass loop, oftentimes I'll put some sort of synth or melodic thing here, and then 4-bar vocal loop. So plenty of flexibility there. If you want to compose within the unit, obviously you don't have to use 4-bar loops. You could compose, using one shots or whatever you want. But for me, regardless of my track, that's the general layout that I'm going to use throughout all of my patterns. At this point, the idea is to follow a specific template so I could drop X sample into X voice slot. And I'll be able to perform the same way no matter what pattern I'm on. It's very easy for dawless to get confusing, and so I think this is a process that will just save a lot of time. These buttons down here mute and unmute tracks. And of course, there is a pro and a con to having your track mute instantly like that. The pro being that obviously you have much more precise control of exactly where you want that track to mute. Con being that your mute and unmute timing has to be spot on. You might get some tails, unwanted tails into some of your samples. To my knowledge, this instant mute and unmute thing is not possible on the Digitact. So let's say that you miss a trigger, that particular voice will not sound until the next trigger comes along. I'll head over to filter settings. You have this parameter right here. So bass, which is different on each voice. Bass is essentially how low that particular low pass filter will go. So if your bass is at 0, it's gonna go all the way down to 0 hertz. I found that there was like a sweet spot depending on the sample. So if it's a higher frequency sample, you could bring that bass a little bit further up, and that changes the response of the pot or the knob that you're using. Q is for resonance, and it's set quite high for each of these voices because I do like a lot of resonance. Yeah. If your Q isn't set high enough, there's no peak, and so it just kind of sounds like you're turning the volume down on that particular voice. So you want that filter effect, at least I do. Here's where we step into a limit between these two effects assignments, effects 1 and effects 2. If you look closely, they include different effects. So if I scroll down, it stops at lo-fi, whereas effects 2 is where you have delay and all of your reverbs as well. So if you have 2 effects assignments per voice, in this case, let's say I want a delay and a reverb on this snare drum. That's not possible because those effects are both on the same voice. Stop right there. I feel like this edit is necessary, so technically what I just said is true, but there are some workarounds. And these discoveries are actually thanks to you guys. I got this information from a forum. I'm not gonna include people's names, but here are some comments and suggestions from you guys. So copy effects page 2 reverb parameters to fix page 1, and then use page 2 for the delay. Another option is to create a neighbor track, which will allow you to choose additional effects channels. Build yourself a delay with retrigger and filter. Kind of have to be careful about what you say with the Octatrack because it seems that there's always some sort of workaround, which is awesome. On top of this, I wanted to make a comparison with the Digitact for this particular streamlined workflow. With the Digitact, there is a reverb, delay, and filter effect send per track. And for this sort of like standard workflow, it puts it at an advantage. There's no workaround for this. You could just add delay, reverb, and filter to each of your tracks, and it'll send to those effects. If you guys have any additions or would like to chime in and add to this, just let us know in the comment section. All right, back to it. Let's take a deeper look into delay settings. There's quite a few things to look at here. So for each voice that I assign delay to, remember that this top one up here is for filter. The second one down from that is for delay on the voices that I assign delay to. This is voice or track 2 on my clap or snare drum. So this is the delay pot. And you could see right here that the send is activating. Let's hear just the drums. So this is my delay send. Down from that is my feedback send. So that'll just go on forever, even if I mute this. So I'm gonna bring that back up. And then the one below that is essentially like a low pass on the delay itself. So this is a lower sounding, darker delay. This is a brighter one. Right, so if you go all the way up here, it's hard to hear it because it's so high. And then there's a sweet spot. I tend to like it around here, a bit darker. Reverb settings. I'm going to mute everything except for kick and this sample right here. I could just do that all day. So this is a sample where reverb sounds great on. So currently I'm assigned to dark reverb. Let's just go to plate reverb. Yes. And I'm gonna hit play again. And just to give you an idea of what spring sounds like, so this is a different sample on track 6 now. Right, so it's a little bit harsh. Maybe I just haven't found that sweet spot yet. I could change the timing of it. Bring the mix up. So this seems to like kind of thicken it up a little bit. Kind of cool. In terms of outsourcing these reverb effects to these knobs here, so on track 7, once again, filter. This is the mix knob. This is the timing, so how long that reverb tail is. And then how dark that reverb tail is. So this is a low pass on the reverb. Oh boy. So that'll just last forever, even if I mute the track. There it goes. Same with this one. This delay tail is way too long. So at this point, essentially, I've used 4 pots on 8 voices. So there's still 2 pots per voice and then 4 unused voices right here. There's one thing to take note of as well if you're implementing this sort of outsourcing MIDI setup with the Octatrack. This was something that happened to me like 5 or 6 times when I was assigning MIDI parameters to the PC-12. You might scroll through something that's not your desired CC parameter assignment, and the Octatrack will just latch onto it. So for example, let's say you're assigning a control to your kick and then all of a sudden you lose your kick. Well, it's because your MIDI controller quickly latched onto something else and changed something. So before freaking out like I did, make sure that you go to that specific track, go through all of your controls. There's 5 pages right here that you could go through, and make sure that everything is assigned properly, or it's, at the proper setting. If you still don't know what the fuck happened, then start twisting knobs, just randomly twisting knobs in these settings, and eventually you'll get some sort of response. So going back to DistroKid and Hyperfollow, if you're looking to officially release your music to major streaming platforms, use this discount link and go with DistroKid. One of their many free promotional tools is called Hyperfollow. It's essentially a link in bio link that I use across all of my social medias. You could put together a totally centralized link hub at no extra charge with a lot of the same features as paid tiers from other platforms. Here's how to set it up. Go to hyperfollow.com and reserve your username. From there, you could fill out your info. As a side note, other platforms charge specifically for ad tracking. That's something that DistroKid offers for free. And this is what the final result looks like. So my latest single, my latest YouTube video, social links, other important links I'd like to lead people to, including this discount link for DistroKid. This is one of many free promotional tools that DistroKid has to offer. They are the most suitable distribution platform for independent artists and producers like myself and maybe you. If you're interested in any of the gear in this video, please consider using the affiliate links in the description. It's one of the best ways of supporting what I do because I would make a small commission off of that sale at no extra charge to you. So just something that keeps this train running. Of course, liking, subscribing, maybe sharing, commenting, all the things. Like I said, this is sort of like a forum, this video. I'd love to have discussions with you guys about the Octatrack. If you have suggestions, better ways that I could have done things, we're all here to learn. Thank you guys so much for being here and hope to see you soon.